Hi, I promised to do a short video blog about my visit to the European Commission with regards to talking about Tartar steel and the anti-dumping measures being carried out by the European Commission. I do want to do another blog on it because I think it's quite a complex area, and I think it's important as an Assembly member for the area to make these issues as clear as possible to local people. But the reason why I'm doing a quick one tonight is I've just come back from a question time session in Pontardawe where we had various questions, but one issue was with regards to Tartar steel, and I just happened to mention the fact that the Welsh Government had only communicated once with the European Commission in November last year, which was before the current crisis, and Labour representatives there seemed to use the word appalled, that it was being made political, that this shouldn't be the case, that the minister is working as hard as she can. And I just think sometimes, it's within our right, is it not, as opposition politicians, and as even if they were backbench Labour AMs and they thought that their government hadn't done enough, to say that to the Welsh nation, to say what the reality of the situation is. And I don't dispute that the high-level task force has been initiated by the Welsh Government. I don't dispute that they're looking to set up an enterprise zone, but it is a bit late, is it not, in the day? These issues are not new at Tartar. Support and help was needed before now. Issues like procurement and so forth. Why are UK industries not using more Welsh steel currently? Why has it taken the threat of 750 jobs or more to go up at Talbot for people to actually sit up and listen? Because, I was at the European Commission for the last 2 days and they thanked me for going there. And if you think about it, at the moment, whether we like it or not, Plaid Cymru are the third party in the National Assembly. And I was speaking to people high up in the European Commission, and they were pleased that I'd made the effort, along with our MEP Jill Evans and a colleague, Adam Price, who was our policy director, to go and actually talk to them about the issues so that we could learn and be proactive. And one of the officials even said to me, do what you can, even if you don't have the powers because you're not a nation state. Put that principle stand out that that you're fighting for the Welsh steel industry. And I think that is important more than anything else sometimes. When they don't hear anything from the Welsh Government, what does that say about us as a nation? We're not fighting, are we then, for our jobs? We're not doing everything that we possibly can. And that's what frustrates me when I'm sitting in the Assembly. I want to know in myself when I go to sleep at night that I've done everything that I possibly can to fight for those jobs in Talbot. Whether the trade union leadership want me to or not, I'm doing it for my constituents and for those steel workers who approach me on a daily basis to ask for help. And so when I went there and I talked to them about the anti-dumping measures, it was interesting because, of course, they had an entirely different viewpoint as to the press over here about the time that they take to investigate. For example, in the USA, they put the measures on to China straight away and then they investigate. So the EU Commission don't do that. They'll investigate first and then they'll put the measures on, or put provisional measures on in the middle of a process to make sure that they can try and stop the Chinese steel from skewing the market. So what they told me when I was out there was that they have to rely on the industry as a collective to come to the table, to the European Commission, and say, look, on this particular type of steel, we've got evidence, clear evidence that China are dumping steel, and we need you to investigate. And so then the European Commission decides whether or not to investigate, and in every case they've had so far, they have investigated. And then they'll have to go through processes where they'll collect data, they'll have to go to the actual steel plant, collect all the vital information and then make a decision, and then that process will have to be followed. And they said it's by law, by legislation, that there's a certain amount of time that it takes for them to be able to do that. So they said that they were doing it as fast as they could. Obviously that's the view of the European Commission. Other people will differ, but I actually did have more understanding from why it had to take such a long period of time, because they said they can't either just say, well, yeah, this is bad, let's impose something on Chinese steel, and then later on find that actually, in terms of competitiveness and market value, that it wasn't the correct thing to do. So they have to fully investigate, and they have to be equal, so that they can't say, well, we've had a complaint from Tartar in Talbot, and then put that as a preference above, say, steel plants in other parts of Europe. They have to treat people fairly, and that's why the steel industry generally comes as a collective complaint to the European Commission. And if we didn't have, or if we weren't in Europe, we wouldn't be able to do that, for example. So to learn about the anti-dumping measures, and there's 3 ongoing at the moment, was really important. But there's also been high-level discussions and competitiveness debates about steel in the European Parliament and the European Commission. And they said to us, there's always more that can be done. We also talked about joint venture, whether the Welsh Government could take a stake in the industry, and that's something the European Commission said was entirely possible via various funds, and so that's something I will be raising with the Welsh Government more so, because that isn't a work stream on this on the Welsh Government's workforce. Looking into joint venture, looking into part nationalisation, however you want to call it. It happens in other parts of the world, such as Italy, at a time of crisis, or even when the government in that said country want to support the steel industry in some way. So it doesn't necessarily have to be at a crisis point, but we are in that position here in Wales. And so I think if we need to build a power plant, if we need to make the industry more efficient or diversify the type of steel we're using here in this area, then we should not, we should exhaust those possibilities. So I will do more of an update for those who are interested in steel in particular, but that was just my initial thoughts, and I know it will be of interest to everybody who works in the steel plant.